Today we're going to be checking out 19 weird things Swedish people do that you should do too.
Are we gonna learn some epic things that we should incorporate into our lives to make ourselves more amazing?
Eat more Swedish meatballs? I'm down for that.
We can just head over to IKEA.
Heck yeah, the world's largest IKEA is like an hour away from us. We're in the Philippines. But is like going to IKEA in Sweden like a thing that tourists do?
Probably. I don't know.
Is it any different?
Probably not.
They seem to like really Swedishify it. Like they have like Swedish things there. But let's jump into the video. Here we go.
Hope you are doing amazingly. Today I'm going to share the craziest, most wonderful, and best Swedish traditions that I think you should try too. From how we cut our pizza, to how we raise our children, to how we sleep,
cut their pizza?
here are some of my
does that
favorite
mean?
Swedish traditions that I think everyone in the whole entire
Do they just cut it in half and then fold it like a burrito and then?
I mean, you got the two different styles that I've seen: the triangle or the square.
Yeah.
And the square is usually for thin crust.
And then like in Italy, we just kind of ate it with a fork and knife.
Yeah, it's not cut.
Yeah.
world should do. So let's get started. We cut our pizza with scissors. This is also a
okay.
minimalist
Korean
hack because
style,
you no longer
kind of?
need to use a silly pizza cutter that you literally cannot use for anything. Instead, just use your kitchen scissors to cut pizza. Cutting pizza is such an easy and fun
Maybe not
way
that.
to-
Rusty.
Makes sense, I guess, because I mean, the pizza cutter, you don't, like she said, you don't use it for anything else, and it doesn't always go through the dough all the way.
No. Gotta get some elbow grease in there sometimes.
One of my favorite hacks for a happy marriage and a Swedish tradition that I grew up with is to have separate duvets. Having separate duvets makes so much more sense. It is so much more comfortable. You never have to fight with your partner over a blanket, and it just makes a world of difference. If you have one duvet, it's big and bulky and it's crazy. Just try 2 duvets and see if it makes you feel any better. Speaking of duvets and bedding, the next thing that is really important that you should try, that we all do in Sweden, is that we have a duvet cover and a duvet inner and a sheet to make our bed. We don't have any top sheets. We don't have any blankets. That is absolutely disgusting. Sorry, but it is because you don't really wash them as often. You need to have a duvet if it's cold in your country, and you need to put the duvet inside of the duvet cover, and then you wash the
Wait,
duvet
is she
cover.
talking about like the kind of blankets that go on top that's like just for looks and then people just push it off?
Maybe. And then, so you have the duvet cover, it's kind of like a pillowcase, where like you have your pillow in your pillowcase, but you just wash the pillowcase. So you have a duvet, and then you use a duvet cover, and then you just wash the duvet cover.
I don't know. It seems whatever she's talking about does not apply to my bed in any way, I don't think. Like
Yeah,
her
same.
talking about things you don't wash.
Yeah.
Just kind of wash everything.
Yeah.
Weekly, and this way you have a very clean bed. When I first came to New Zealand, I was taught about the idea of a top sheet, and you sort of put the duvet on top, but you never really encase it. But that means that when you move around throughout the bed, your body will touch the duvet inner, and you simply cannot wash that once a week because it doesn't last as long as if you do that. So absolutely, if you have a duvet inner and it's cold in your country, put a duvet outer on it, and in the summer when it's too warm, you just put the duvet inner away and you just sleep with the duvet outer as a blanket. Easy. One of my favorite Swedish sayings is something like, there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. Very literal
Really?
and very Swedish, but as a child, this was normally printed on our weekly mailer at kindergarten or at school, which basically meant for our parents to remember to put proper clothing on us because we would be outside all day, no matter the weather. I think most people these days tend to stay inside when it's bad weather outside instead of just going out there, but by putting on proper clothing, it makes it so much easier to be outside in all weathers, and it's so much better for your health to be outside and breathe in the microbiome rather than just staying inside and watching TV. Another Swedish health hack for you guys. One of the things that I didn't think was weird, but that became obvious to me the moment I moved abroad, was the fact that we don't talk about race. The first time I heard the word Caucasian, I was 20 and living in Japan, and before that I had never heard any of these words, and it's just not.
How are you supposed to tell certain groups what to do when you don't talk about their race? What are you talking about? Joke, obviously. I'm just making fun of the US here.
Very interesting. I mean, she's pretty young. I feel like Sweden got slightly more diverse in the past few decades.
Yeah.
So they just even like the other races in Sweden, you just don't mention it at all, or is it becoming more of a topic now?
We've noticed that there's been like a huge trend with a lot of the migrants coming into Europe that there's very, very anti-migrant people who
Yeah.
definitely would use race all the time when referring to the migrants.
So that's an interesting. I'm curious
How is
to
it in
hear,
Sweden?
yeah, what you guys say down in the comments about this. Like, yeah, or maybe she's just in a like tight knit community where everybody's just white and they never heard about it before. Who knows?
Something we talk about. Which brings me on to the next point, is that you never have to disclose this information if you, for example, go to the bank or going to the university. And that information is absolutely not necessary for the bank to know.
But this does seem like a really, sometimes when they ask for ethnicity on like forms, other than like a government form or something, it like doesn't make any sense. Why does a bank need to go? I guess if you walk in and you say, my name is George Foreman, and they're like, wait, this says that you're white. Why are you a black man?
Are you a grill?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a George name after it, and then I just went to Foreman.
But yeah, it is odd. Like, and then like, how do you quantify it? Like, it's just white, black, mixed, Hispanic. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you put, do they even have like mixed
I
on a
don't
lot
know.
of them
I don't
anymore?
know. I don't know how it works.
Asian Pacific Islander.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of them because it's become like, oh, it's a weird way because she talks about how like race isn't a thing, and that's like kind of supposed to be the point, that race isn't a thing, but also the people that in the US that really care about like race as being equal, they also want to like break every single race down like to their very specific race. So suddenly the like lists of races are getting really long on forums,
Yeah.
which is interesting because it kind of like goes against what they believe, but also it's like inclusive. It's to navigate the political like societal field in the US is very complicated.
It's very complicated, but based off how she describes it, the simplest solution for Sweden is just to just ignore that it exists. The race, you don't
Yeah.
you don't acknowledge the race.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't know. It's a weird. That's definitely a very different issue.
It's a melting pot country versus a very similar society country, similar race country.
When I'm opening
I
my bank
guess.
account, and frankly, it's ridiculous. So do what the Swedish people do, I guess. Whilst we're speaking about politically sensitive subjects, let's speak about children. In Sweden, we treat our children with respect and we treat them as already humans, which is something I really, really enjoy and I think everyone should do. Kids don't have
Meaning, you walk up to the new child, 2 years old, and you're like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" Dap them up. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Do people dap in Sweden?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think so.
My guess is giving them freedoms to do a lot of things.
But they're two.
to address older people in a certain way. Kids don't really have to act in a certain way. Kids are really allowed to be kids, which means they're allowed to make mistakes. They're allowed to be upset. They don't have to hug someone if they don't want to. They don't have to kiss someone if they don't want to. Just completely reasonable things that I think every country should adopt. Kids are the best thing in the world, so I absolutely think we should treat kids with the utmost respect. Now,
One thing with that though is kids are really, really stupid.
Yeah, they definitely need some guidance, of course.
Yeah, they're like, if you just let them do whatever they want, they're kind of gonna go wild. Like, if there's that Reddit, kids are stupid, I think, and it's just like clips of kids just doing like the dumbest things ever, and you're like, oh boy,
Falling over and tripping over something.
yeah. That's an interesting
now,
one.
this one, I don't know if it's for all of Sweden, but it's definitely something I've experienced a lot of times. But that is people, when I get invited to dinner parties, people ask me, is there something you don't eat? My goodness, this has saved so much trouble having a dinner party or going to a dinner party. I normally tell my best friend when I go to dinners at hers that I don't eat coriander or cilantro because I really, really don't like it. And it makes it a lot easier. One of the most important Swedish traditions is being whole and clean. Now, what does this mean? This is a deeply rooted tradition that goes so far back in Swedish history, but ultimately it means to always present yourself as best as you possibly can. Every time we had friends over, my family would just massively clean the entire house, not because it was necessarily dirty, but it's so important to uphold the standard of being whole and clean in Swedish society.
Interesting.
Another thing that I think is crazy that other countries have and that we don't have is that we don't really use the expression from scratch. Growing up, I didn't know that you could buy cake mixes. I had only seen it on TV. I had never really heard of it. I didn't know you could buy any sort of pre-made food, or something that we call halvfabrikat, which technically means half processed foods. Of course, this might differ a little bit, but in general, we don't say that we make things from scratch in Sweden. If you make a cake, you will make it from scratch. That is just how you make a cake. There's no other way to make a cake. You either buy it from the bakery or you make it from scratch.
Seems like it'd be a bit healthier.
Yeah, I mean, it still is a cake.
Yeah.
But there's not, maybe some chemicals are left out in that situation.
And I think that's also one of the reasons why we are quite a healthy country. One of the best Swedish cultural traditions that you've probably already heard about is fika. A fika is when you have a coffee, normally, or a tea, with a sweet treat, and you normally have it in the afternoon, but you can actually have it whenever. And this is one of the most common things we do when we go on dates or meet up with our friends. It's so cozy, it's really fun. I also really like that it's one of the few things in Sweden where you can date someone or meet someone without drinking alcohol. Now, fika means different things in different languages, especially in Italian, so I would use it with caution and use it only when you're in Sweden. Going back to childcare, another thing that I really appreciate about Swedish culture that you should try if you have children is co-sleeping. My parents co-slept with me and my brother. Everyone I know, I think, co-slept. My sister co-slept with me or with her parents when she was with them. And I've never ever had any issues, heard any issues, or hear anyone talk badly about co-sleeping. Co-sleeping with your baby makes so much more sense because you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night and go into another room. Also, your baby's brain is not developed enough to know that you're not in the room, which makes it feel unsafe. Co-sleeping is literally the best option for sleeping with your baby. My dad built this really clever little half crib that he put next to the bed with a mattress and made it level to the bed. So I could be in the bed, co-sleeping there at the same time as my mom was in the bed. Co-sleeping shouldn't be a term, I don't think. It shouldn't be a trend. It shouldn't be an idea. It should just be the most common way for sleeping with your baby. Another thing that is common...
I feel like it's quite common for parents to have the baby in the crib in their room.
Yeah.
That's quite common.
And then, like, if they can't sleep well, maybe they'll come in bed with the parents and try to sleep with them if they're scared or something.
So, like, and I know there's, like, a certain age of baby where it's, like, kind of dangerous to have them sleep in the bed when they're too young because you can, roll on them or something like that. But that is very interesting. So how old does this co-sleeping go? Like, to what point does the kid... Like, are we talking 3? Are we talking
15 years old?
18? As soon as you're 18?
Yeah, you're not in our bed anymore.
Oh, okay, get your own room.
In Sweden, that isn't very common abroad, is that both men and women call themselves feminists. In Sweden, people are generally more educated about feminism than in other countries, and I really like that we use the word more casually and educated about feminism.
Where gender equality is closer to reality. Iceland, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Nicaragua.
And Rwanda, and then Ireland.
Philippines, yeah. Other than taxi drivers, everything is pretty split, 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, not that this necessarily shows gender equality, but a lot of women here work.
They do. I mean,
like most of the service jobs, like probably 50-50 with people you'd see working are just women.
It's literally everything except for like the really traditional taxi drivers, construction workers, garbage men, police, stuff like that. There's some security guards.
A good chunk actually.
Feminism than in other countries, and I really like that we use the word more casually and without so much attachment to it that comes from other countries.
If you hear that in the US, it's only negative.
It is. It's always either people using it to victimize other people or people using it to want to be a victim or something like that. Versus it should just be a thing where it's like, oh, it's believe this.
Literally two contexts is literally, oh, these dang feminists, or I'm a feminist. And it's not usually men. It's only like...
And then the men that are feminists, there's like a 50-50 chance that they're just doing that to get some brownie points.
Yeah,
and,
it seems like that's kind of the case, to be honest. It's definitely cool that in Sweden, that's just like the norm.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the things, the political... social things are just kind of like the norm.
I mean, maybe in her experience, I don't know. Maybe, let us know. It's because we're listening from one person, and in today's day and age where everyone's on their own algorithm on social media, she might only get feminist stuff. Who knows?
Sweden that I thought was a bit quite strange is that our school is a lot easier than any other school in the world.
Really?
Now, I don't know exactly how accurate this is, but I know that in general in Sweden, we are very educated. However, our school, especially I think middle school and preschool, is a lot easier than, for example, in England or in New Zealand. We have way less assignments, way less homework, but somehow it still works. Unfortunately, this
Like
trend
Finland?
is changing and we're becoming a bit more like the rest of the world. But I really think
That's kind of
homework
the
is
sad
ridiculous.
thing that it seems like, I mean, all the positives about Europe, the kind of like American economy, capitalist like ideas are kind of like forcing their way into all of these like very high quality of life societies in Europe. They're just like pounded down the doors, austerity stuff's kind of going on. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, and it's kind of, you know, that based off how the US is functioning right now, it probably won't work very well.
No, the US is falling apart. Like people literally think the US is going to like crumble in the next few decades. And those same capital owners, those same people that are doing that to the US are trying to go over in Europe and do it there. It's kind of scary. Europe's always that beacon of hope, I feel like, in the world, and
Yeah.
especially the Nordic countries.
We shouldn't have it. So that's that. One weird thing we do in Sweden, but I think we shouldn't do, so disregard this one, is that we don't really date. Although I'm Swedish, I've never dated a Swedish guy because I think I've only had 2 Swedish guys ever hit on me in my entire life.
Interesting.
But in general, we don't really date. We don't really have a period of dating where you can see other people, or normally you're just sort of not together and then you're sort of together. Dating in Sweden is very weird. That is why I've been so unsuccessful at it. And yeah, I find it a bit uncomfortable. And I think Sweden, in fact, should adopt how people date in other countries because I think it makes way more sense and it's a much more adult way of dating. Something we do in Sweden is that we learn English.
I honestly have no idea what she was referring to.
I don't know what that means either.
I have no idea. I don't know how.
She referenced other countries where you have a period of dating where you can see other people as well.
Is that a European thing?
Maybe.
Europeans seem a little more like,
Open.
yeah, I feel like maybe in California that's a thing, but not as much a Minnesota thing. Right?
Yeah.
I've never seen that type of stuff.
We weren't much of the daters back in
No,
our
we're
day.
kind of like gamers,
Yeah.
dude.
Or we got a date on the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea what she was talking about at all.
Very early. This also makes so
Learn
much
English
sense because
early.
it's easier to learn a language when you're young.
Yeah,
And voila, most people speak.
We happen to do that. We're ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Learned English right away.
And you know what? I learned a bit of Spanish in high school. Hola, ¿cómo te llamas?
That's all we know.
English.
Americans, we don't know anything. We've lived in the Philippines for 3 years. Can't speak the language.
Who's the car, my friends?
Which is such a useful skill to have if you want to live in another country or have any job where you don't work in Sweden. All right, so we're going even more political. Time for religion.
Okay.
One thing we don't do in Sweden is we're not really religious or go to church, even though Wikipedia might say otherwise. So this has changed
Opposite of
since then, but when
America.
I grew up and my entire generation, we couldn't choose to be enrolled in the Swedish church system. That just happened automatically when we were born, no
2%
matter
are
if we
regular
were
Sunday
baptized or
services.
not. We just
Whoa.
went straight into the Swedish church system, which is also the system you have to be in if you want to be buried in a churchyard or if you want to be married in a church, if you want to get baptized in a church, etc., etc. So this is a quite fun fact compared to other countries because if you look at Wikipedia, it says most Swedish people are religious, but that's simply because we are enrolled.
Wikipedia
If you
says
look at Wikipedia, it
67%?
Yeah, how'd they get that?
Oh, I've always heard that the Nordic countries are like majority
Yeah.
non-religious.
Yeah.
says most Swedish people are religious, but that's simply because we are enrolled in church. Now, say what you want about religion, but I, for one, am a person who thinks that we should practice what we preach. And since most people have lots of sex before marriage, drink a ridiculous amount of alcohol, and do all other sorts of gluttonous things, I think it makes complete sense that most people don't go to church. I remember going to church in kindergarten for our summer ending, and I remember my priest had leather pants and played a rock and roll guitar, which we all thought was very, very fun. We are a land of wonderful and quirky, weird, strange traditions. In Sweden, we have something called jantelagen, which practically means be humble, but also never talk well about yourself. So there are pros and cons about this law. It's an unwritten law. But one of the good things about it is that Swedish people are in general very comfortable and quiet, or maybe
You're not to
better
think you're
is to say
special or
not
smarter than
loud
anyone
people.
else.
So it's very nice to be
Is that the kind of individualism of the United States versus the community of Sweden? In the United States, everyone thinks they're a special star.
Seems to benefit the society of Sweden, probably, if you feel that everyone's kind of equals, you know,
Yeah.
based off of the other stuff you were talking about, the feminism, the race. You're all equals. You'll have no problem joining as a community and contributing.
Everyone thinks they're the best and that they're going to be super successful at everything in the US. They're just a soon-to-be billionaire in the US.
Everyone's assumed to be billionaire.
Yeah.
around Swedish people. No one ever yells. No one ever tries to really be the center of attention. No one really, speaks really loudly. One of my favorite things we do in
we
Sweden,
ever
which does
speak
not
really
work in
loudly?
English.
I don't
is
think
we
so.
don't really have a word for
Exactly.
please. Now you can use snälla, which means like most kindly or can you kindly, or you can use tack, which means thank you. But we don't really have a word for please. I love learning languages because this is those little parts about a language and a culture that you won't really learn unless you know the language. So I love speaking English. I love using the word please. But I also love speaking Swedish and being able to sneak in a tack or a snälla where Swedish people normally don't and sound like the most friendly and polite person in the world. So it's a win-win. So, okay, my friends, I did not think we'd go this political. I have written this video down. It's very funny because when I translate these very regular Swedish ideas to English, they suddenly become so much more political. Swedish people are in generally extremely nice, and it's such a nice culture to live in. And I think that's why so many people move back to Sweden when they want to have a family, because it's such a safe and reasonable and wholesome place for kids to grow up. And part of that is because these lovely and quirky ideas that we have. Thank you guys so much for watching this video.
All right, very interesting video. Like a lot of points that actually like kind of make us think. And we're like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, very thought-provoking video. Some stuff that's like very super Swedish culture stuff, and then some stuff that's like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if that's like how everyone thinks there, or it's her, or her family, or her community. It's very interesting, and that's why you guys are here to let us know in the comments below.
So leave it. What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on this thought-provoking video?
Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed. We'll see you in Sweden.
The opposite of hedge. What's the opposite of hedge?
Veg.